Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our viewers and visitors out there. Welcome to the 2021 JobStreet Virtual Career Fair, your springboard to a brighter future. My name is Shireen. I am your host for today, and I hope that wherever that you are logging in from, do keep safe and stay healthy. Now, throughout this virtual career fair, we've had opportunities to talk to industry experts, specialists, and various career profiles to help job seekers out there to understand better the many aspects of the industry and crucial tips to secure their dream job. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our very special guest for today, the Managing Director of JobStreet himself, Mr. Vic Sithasanan. Hello there, Vic. How are you today?
Hey Shireen, I'm doing good, thank you. I love the intro. I love the fact that you said springboard. I think that's very apt for today, isn't it?
Yes, and in actual fact, JobStreet was my first job portal, and it provided me with all my career jobs in my career. So it's really great and a great honor to be able to support and give back to JobStreet.
No, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you so much.
That's great to hear. So let's get rolling. We have some questions for today, and we look forward to gain all the insights, from the top man of JobStreet himself.
No, there are many more top people, but definitely, I'll try my best. Yeah,
Cool, great.
yeah.
So maybe just to get our viewers warmed up to you, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm sure many would be very intrigued to hear about your very illustrious career as well.
Very much like you, Shireen, I think, JobStreet played a part in kind of driving me where I am today. I know that sounds corny being someone who works at JobStreet, but I had the opportunity to study in the UK. So
Mm.
I did engineering in
Ah, nice.
university, but
Okay.
unfortunately, that wasn't really something I was very interested in. So
Mm.
I got a job in the UK after I graduated for 2 years. I worked with Johnson and Johnson
Mm.
and I was a kind of a project manager slash system administrator. So I was technical, but I wasn't in engineering. So when I
Ah,
came
okay.
back to Malaysia, the first job that I got was through JobStreet actually. So that was
Awesome.
the kind of only place that was aggregating all these jobs from so many different areas
Mm.
and different companies. So I actually managed to find a job from a digital agency that was starting up in the region. So they actually got some big VC funding and they were expanding across the region. So I joined them and I was in KL. So that was actually through JobStreet, and that kind of I guess that got me really interested in the whole digital technology and kind of building digital experiences on the web. And at that time mobile was not even there,
Mm.
right? So it was
Yeah.
truly just web 1.0. You built websites, you built email campaigns, and that's maybe banners, that was kind of
Yeah.
the big thing then. So I was
Mm.
in the digital marketing space and the kind of digital innovation space up to the
Ah.
point, I guess, that I joined JobStreet. So it's always been a kind of iterative step. So what started off as really basic web 1.0 became social media, and now it's mobile. And just
Mm.
before joining JobStreet, I actually co-founded a technology startup that
Mm.
was using artificial intelligence to
Mm.
basically automate customer experience and
Ah,
employee
okay.
experience with kind of large companies, not just in Malaysia, but we had clients all around the world. And that was a company that my co-founders and we managed to sell off to a much larger global business, and
Mm.
we were with them for many years, and the company is great and it's successful. So it was time to look for something new. So that's where JobStreet was, for me, was like really interesting as an opportunity, and essentially that's how I started. So I'm relatively quite new at JobStreet, so this is my fourth month, so this is still early days for me.
Wonderful. So it's like, it came full cycle, right?
Full
For you
cycle,
to
it's
come
strange,
back.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I'm sure many of our job seekers out there, and many Malaysians, right, outside of the country, would be looking at how they can come back and how and which portal should they go to look for jobs back in Malaysia because that's normally the biggest challenge, right? Once I come back to my home country, wherever it is, how do I get and secure a job there in the best and most easiest manner, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's where JobStreet comes along with, its vast subsidiaries across Asia. I think it's where job seekers can really have that comfort to get on board.
No, and it's, I think, that's a great point. So let's assume that you're overseas and you're looking
Mm,
to come back to Malaysia and you want to find out what's really happening in the job market. So
mm,
JobStreet today, if you look at just the number of opportunities that we have on the portal, we have over 50,000 jobs currently advertised
mm.
for jobs in
Wow,
Malaysia.
wow.
And this year, over 30,000 employees were looking for people, right? So that's a big number.
Mm,
So I mean, a portal like JobStreet is great because it gives you a great snapshot across, and you're going to
mm,
be able to see, who is looking for people, what sort of jobs are around. Even for kind of very emerging roles, I think,
mm.
kind of very new and emerging industries as well, like 5G,
Yeah.
IoT,
Mm,
AI, machine learning, all of these things. There's definitely opportunities in Malaysia, but you need to know basically, to have a place to search for that and to be able to find who is looking for those roles. So JobStreet would be definitely I would say one of the places you should definitely look at,
yeah.
and yeah, and explore.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So viewers out there, especially for fresh grads, young adult working
Yeah,
adults, right? We have over nearly 70 to 80,000 of fresh graduates in Malaysia every year, and you have 50,000 over jobs on board. So
yeah.
the maths add up, right? So please come on board on JobStreet to get your first dream job. So and I just wanted to find out a little bit more, in the this is the second time JobStreet is hosting a virtual career fair. So would you be able to share with us a little bit some of the highlights in this round and what would be the trend for career fairs in the future?
Okay, let me try answering your second part first. Okay, so
Okay,
in terms
awesome.
of trends for career fairs, I think, obviously with the lockdown and the fact that
Mm,
there's limited ability for people to meet at
mm-hmm,
scale, like in a normal career fair, the virtual
mm,
career fairs were a great kind of alternative for both hirers as well as candidates. You can still meet, you can still kind of
mm,
engage, but of course,
yeah.
everything is virtual. But what's interesting is the VCF has shown us in the kind of experience that we've had with it that it's also allowing candidates that may not necessarily be in that city that you're usually hosting a physical career fair to be
Mm,
able to participate. So I think
mm,
accessibility, I think the VCF obviously is, a lot more accessible to, everyone in Malaysia, no matter where
yeah.
you may be. So I think those benefits will remain. And I foresee for JobStreet, at least, we will definitely continue having these virtual career fairs. In terms of scale and how we do it, because we're still learning, I think one of the
Mm,
points in terms of how we want to operate our business is to always remain creative and
mm,
always remain agile. So we take a
yeah.
lot of learnings from the things that we do. And every time we run a career fair, we try new things to kind of engage and give more value to both the hirers and the candidates. So if something doesn't work, then maybe it's not going to be there in the next round, but we'll try something else. So I think that agile approach will see us evolve the VCF to a point that it's highly effective for both candidates and hirers. But I think
Mm,
in some form, the VCF, as in virtual, will always
mm,
be there. But that doesn't mean that we will stop having physical fairs. I think
mm,
once it becomes safe and once it becomes that, we have SOPs around kind of events and how we can run them, we
mm,
would definitely want to have those physical
yeah.
fairs as well, because there is definitely some magic in walking around a huge hall and the energy of other candidates looking for work and these booths that are dressed up and people giving swag away. There's definitely something nice about that, right? It feels
Yes.
hopeful and you feel, that, yeah, I'm going to get something out of this, or hopefully I can get my dream job. So I think we definitely want to have a balance of that. So what's
Mm,
different about this VCF that we are currently going, well, currently you guys are actually engaged
mm,
with, is that we have a lot of tools for the candidates.
mm,
In terms of kind of writing better CVs,
mm,
there is definitely, I mean, in terms of crafting and writing a better CV or profile or cover letter,
yeah.
definitely
Yes.
carries its weight. So I think,
Mm,
we've got a lot of tools that assist in that. So there's AI tools. So those kind
mm,
of things would definitely assist in that. We've also tried to enhance the way that we can get interviews done one-to-one. So there's a lot of
mm,
live chat and video chat capabilities that have
mm.
been enabled this round. So
Yeah.
we'll be tracking those and we'll see which ones work. And, we'll obviously keep adding on features as we go along, because we're also running this across the region in other markets as well. Like the same time we're running it in Malaysia, we're also running it in Indonesia, for example. So the
Yeah.
scale of the opportunity is huge across the region.
That's wonderful, because the agility and the test and learn attitude. This is where we can see the improvements and to bring more to all our job seekers out there. Now everyone is talking about the before and after pandemic situation. So what are some of the major shifts that you sense and you've noticed about the job market, both from the job seekers' perspective as well as the hirers and employers?
Hmm. Actually, that's really interesting. I think the whole, forcing everyone to work from home, yeah, and there's so much of information and articles written about it, has almost like changed the way we will work moving
Mm,
forward. It almost seems like that. So the way that we look at it, and from our conversations with hirers and also, speaking to candidates that, I mean, even our own employees that are spread across Malaysia, right? So JobStreet is not just in KL. We have an office in Penang, we have an office in Johor, and of course, people come from all over. And in this pandemic, we have learned that, we are operating as efficiently and as well as we did, even though we are not in the office, right? People are spread across. So I feel like moving forward, I think for both the higher, employers and as well as the candidates, I think there is going to be definitely a lot more openness in having remote and distributed teams.
mm,
So what does that mean for us? Okay, so it means that, for instance, let's say an employer has a gap in a very specific technology area that maybe there aren't enough Malaysian candidates that can supply that
mm,
for that role.
mm.
It could be likely that we will hire remote workers and keep them remote, right? So that means it's changed the dynamic in a way that, that whole kind of beyond borders was very difficult kind of it is no longer the truth. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we, fast forward 5 years where companies have small teams in Estonia, small teams in Malaysia, small teams in India, small
Mm,
teams everywhere kind of working together. So the challenge with that, of course, is the time zones and how you work across different time zones, which obviously gets more and more difficult as you go further
mm,
away from,
mm,
the HQ or hub, right?
mm.
But it also means it gives opportunities for Malaysians to also work with other companies
Yeah.
all around the world, right? So that means there's also that opportunity on the other side of things as well. But it also means that, some people would rather work from home because they feel it's a more creative space for them, and they don't have to commute and spend an hour commuting and an hour commuting back, which means 2 hours back in their lives to do other things. So I think a hybrid approach in terms of having kind of creative meetings together or having strategic meetings together where things need to be kind of ironed out on the whiteboard and kind of a discussion in person will still happen. But I think that kind of that everyone needs to be in the office, you need to clock in, you need to clock out at a certain time, you need to put in the hours. I think that kind of concept is slowly going to fade away.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see how this impacts the more traditional companies that have always had this mindset of clocking in, clocking out. But
Mm,
when you look at the startups and the kind of more new age technology firms and the creative firms, they've always been quite flexible with time. So for them, it's kind of probably this just an extension of what they were doing anyway. But
yeah.
it would really be interesting to see the kind of like,
Mm,
really traditional businesses trying to
yeah.
adapt to this. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I would see that hybrid approach of work is going to be the main thing that's going to stay on forever. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. So it leads to my next question, right? Where how do you then look at the talents, the motivation and drivers in this type of trend of job seekers, right? In which employers should take note of in order to get their best talents out there.
Yeah, this it not being able to have a physical interview
Mm,
takes away a couple of tools that a hirer uses to evaluate a candidate. So
mm,
like body language,
Mm,
how you carry yourself and how you communicate in person with someone else. All of these kind of things are completely eliminated when you're doing an interview through Zoom, for example, right?
yeah.
So I think, it becomes more and more important. I guess let me just talk about the employer side first, and then I'll talk about
Mm,
the candidate side.
yeah.
So on the employer side, it becomes more important to check referrals and
Mm,
basically do a lot more due diligence.
mm,
What I am not advocating is, of course, don't go and check out their social profile, or the fact that oh, they're doing. I mean, everyone has the right to express themselves creatively in their own
mm,
time. So that's not what I
yeah.
mean. I mean, check out their professional references in
Mm,
terms of what are people, what did their previous peers say, what did their previous supervisors say, if they were managing people, what did their subordinates say about them. I think
mm,
that's really important in a time like this, because we can't really judge that kind of chemistry you may feel with a face-to-face meet. I
yeah.
think on the candidate side, I think the flip side of that is it's if you take the effort to basically create these a better CV, update your profiles, get those references, get those testimonials, put a portfolio together in terms of all the projects you've done,
Mm,
and even send that out. Like, let's just say you have an interview. Say you have an interview scheduled tomorrow, you can send a pre-read to the hirer to say, hey, these are all the projects that I've done, and just have a look at them, and if anyone is of interest, we can always discuss it during the interview. Kind of show a lot more enthusiasm, and it's
mm,
likely that you would start ticking those boxes that unfortunately you can't do in person. So I think it's
mm,
it's a lot more effort probably required from the candidate side to kind of really showcase, especially if you're going after those very highly coveted and highly contested kind of roles. You
mm,
need to really be above and beyond to attract, where all the hierarchies is a face on Zoom, right? It's nothing
yes.
else. So you definitely
Yes.
need to stand out in other ways. Yeah. So I would say that that's the changes that have happened now because of the situation that we're in.
Ah, cool. So, job viewers and job seekers out there, don't forget these are really good practical tips from Vic himself, right? And I do agree with you. Sometimes, we as candidates or we as job seekers may underestimate the importance of this virtual interview, right? Things like the digital body language, your tone of voice, even a simple thing like your background to
True.
impress the future employers.
No, I
Um,
agree. I mean, I've actually just a couple of real life examples. We were hiring a pretty senior position in the
mm,
company.
mm,
And the couple of candidates that connected with us, their video wasn't clear. So obviously
mm,
their network is not great. So they were obviously choppy and the voice wasn't coming out well.
mm,
And the video is very, very blur. So you can't really make out, it's kind
mm.
of like
The facial
freeze frame, and
expressions.
yeah, you can't
Mm,
really see that. So I would say that, because it is a virtual meet, if the internet is not good where you live, for example, find someone where the internet is good, you have a quiet space and you can do the interview there. Because
mm.
I think having a good, that's your first impression, right? When you connect,
Yes. Yeah.
want your first impression, say, oh, sorry, my network is, let me,
Mm,
my call is not clear, or my video is not working, I'm sorry. That's the first impression. So I think
mm,
always be prepared, and you can sign up to, for example, a lot of these interviews are in Zoom or Microsoft Teams mainly, right? So
mm,
you can install these for free. You can
mm.
actually try out these, we even
Yeah.
have on our site, we have an interview practice tool. So you can record yourself based on the questions that are
Mm,
commonly asked in an interview, and then see how you look like when you respond to it. Are you confident, or are you like, there's a lot of sentence bridges, like, you
mm.
can at least practice. So
Yeah.
even if, 50% of the questions you have pre-practice and you are able to deliver that, I think the interviewer would be forgiving enough if, some couple of questions you never knew were going to come out and you had to think about it, and, you had some time to go back with an answer. But I think preparation and being able to ensure that your technology is working is, I think, key for this.
Yes, yes, definitely. Preparation is definitely key, right? And I always believe the amount of time that you spend for preparation showcases
Mhm.
how much you want that job or that
I
role.
agree. Totally
So,
agree.
yeah. So, based on some of your experiences that you've encountered, especially with happy, satisfied job seekers that got their dream job through JobStreet, what are some key factors do you think that attributed to their success in finding their dream career?
Actually, that's we were talking about preparation in terms of
Mm,
when you get the interview. I
mm,
think there is also, I think a candidate should also invest the time to find out what sort of company they want to work with, and whether the values of those companies that they're looking at kind of matches or aligns with their own values. You see, the thing is, when this is often said, but sometimes unless it's a realization, it's not maybe something top of mind, right? But
mm,
it's important to align purpose, because if you are doing something that you love every day because you believe that the company is doing something right and you believe in that, whatever that the company is doing, it could be anything. It could be connecting people together,
yeah,
and that could be a telco, and you really like the fact that it brings people together no matter where they may be in the country, and you
mm,
believe that purpose, then going every day to work feels right. But if you're
yeah,
someone who feels like you want to connect people, but then you're working for a company that's about all about isolating people, for instance, completely opposite, you're never going to be happy. So
mm,
I think taking that time to really look at companies that you would want to work with, and the kind of belief is important. And of course, then doing research in terms of whether the skills you have matches the stuff that they have.
mm,
The thing is, finding a job is not, although we make it super easy for a candidate to go onto the site, click on a job, you can apply. It's so easy, right? But
mm,
it's not like buying something from a supermarket. It's not just adding
yeah,
something to a cart and
okay,
checking out. You really have to, for example, let's say you want your dream job and you have some white spaces in your experience, take
mm,
an online course, right? You
mm,
have to look at finding this dream job as a 3 month, 6 month process.
mm,
In that time, it's not just about clicking apply, but it's also about improving yourself along the way as well, right?
mm,
Take an online
yes,
course, improve your skills, kind of write, take the time to craft out what your cover letter would be for this dream,
mm,
and the dream company. Write all of those things up, because you have that time. Don't just click and just wait and then just watch Netflix or whatever it is, and then expect the job to come to you. A lot of it is about you putting a lot of effort, then almost magically things will start to happen, right? Because you're putting the effort, your kind of, your energy
mm,
around that is
mm,
all about you trying to better yourself, and automatically, it pushes you forward. So I think that's important. So obviously, taking the time to find the job, taking the time to get ready for the interview, all of that shows that you're a person that can, really cares and wants that job. So yeah, I think those are the things that, for me, when I look at someone who comes to an interview and shows that,
mm,
even before starting to talk to them, I'm already impressed, right?
yeah,
Because the person has already come to the table with so much. So,
yes,
it makes it easier to have the conversation. I don't have to try to extract the information during the interview, but instead of that, I can talk to them about the things that, what ideas that they may have for the company, or plans that, if they were put in a situation, what would they do,
yeah,
rather than, okay, tell me a bit about this experience, and then listen to them for 10 minutes and then ask again. It changes
mm,
the dynamic. So I think always be prepared, and also plan out for your career. It's not just adding things to a cart. I think
yeah.
that's what I would say as
Yeah, that's fantastic. Actually, it ties in really well to all our previous speakers from the various companies that we have been interviewing. They always speak about these two key points. One is the willingness to learn and grow and continue to develop
Mm,
yourself, not always necessarily from the from the company, right? You have to do your
yes.
own self-development. And the second point is driving the passion and having that passion for what you do back at work, right? So
Yeah.
it really shows the what employers are looking for out there, and job seekers and viewers out there, please take note of this very important point.
Yeah, I
Um,
think continuous learning is definitely a very, very key point. Yep.
yeah, true, true. I agree with you there. So in your span of your career, this is a little bit about, your experience that you have had before. Perhaps, would you be able to share one inspiring story that could inspire our viewers out there about a career-oriented person that, probably, touched you or impacted you very deeply?
Yeah, okay. So I have a couple of examples here, but I don't know whether they are really like,
Yeah,
an extreme story. So I told you this before we we started
yeah, it's
talking, but
okay.
let me just share. Okay, so the first one I had. Okay, so it's this was a company that I was working with. It was an international ad agency, and with the international ad networks, they often have these opportunities to win a client where they cover the global advertising, digital strategy, execution, etc. So these are very big accounts. And we were told that our agency network may not be able to participate in this pitch. Usually you go and pitch to the senior managers. So what was interesting, okay, so the guy he wasn't even a new business guy, and he was in charge of the account that would, if we were to win this, he would be heading this account globally. So he's a senior guy, but he is not the main CEO or whatever it is. So what he did was at that time, he's actually British, but he was in the US at that time attending meetings. He paid for his own flight, flew to Shanghai, where the what do you call, the client was having their board meeting, sat outside their hotel lobby, and this is all like no baggage, right? He just flew from the office. So he's still in the same suit that he was wearing in the office, sat in the lobby and waited for like 8 hours till the person came out, and he told them that they have to invite us into the pitch. And because of his dedication to the company and being able to go through that pain and be there sitting with them, and he had to fly back to the UK to be with his family after that, right? And we got invited, and we actually went on to win the business. So I think, and of course, eventually he must have claimed his flight and they would have paid for it. But the fact that he was willing to do it, and willing to do the right thing by the company, however extreme that seemed at that time, was important for the company to grow as a business. So I think sometimes it's important to think about, it's sometimes people feel like, they, after a long time within a company, there's a sense that this is it. My job is within a scope, but sometimes stepping beyond that scope can really truly bring amazing results. So I think shown by this guy, and he eventually went on to lead North America, and he became a big exec. So the whole idea was, he did it without asking for permission. He asked for forgiveness later, but he did it because he thought it was the right thing, which I thought was really, really quite special. So that was one. The second one was, actually, this is more minor, I think, but it was actually really interesting also. We had an intern. So during the startup where we were doing technology, there's often points where, there's a lot of planning and brainstorming, because we're always looking for novel, new ideas, right? That need to break through. Because if you're doing something that's similar, then there's no differentiator. Especially if you're a startup, you need to differentiate. So we were having one of these sessions, and we always have interns that are with us. So we had a couple of interns that were there that were in the brainstorm. And they were contributing, and it was like a regular brainstorm, but we really didn't solve the problem. And it was 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and we decided, look, we spent way too much time in the evening to do this, and we all went back. What was interesting is they spent the whole night literally staying on. They when they had McDonald's or whatever, and came back to the office and did all, kind of really continued the brainstorming and came up with ideas that actually eventually ended up in the platform. Right. So that, and when we came back in the morning, we were like, what are you guys doing here? And why is there like such a mess in this room? And then, you look at the whiteboard, and it's full of their ideas and things and journeys. And I think the senior guys in the team were like so touched by these guys, right? Like, wow. So they got glowing reports, obviously, because they were university students interning, and they got an amazing referral from us because they really went beyond, right? Nice. So I think a lot of these examples are, don't be confined by your scope, I think, right? Don't think that just because you're junior staff, your idea is not important. Or don't just think because you're a senior staff that you have all the power to, and you have all the wisdom and insight. Actually, ideas and creativity come from any part of the business. And as long as it can make sense and it works, there's no harm giving it a go and trying out, right? So I think those are the kind of couple of examples I have. Unfortunately, no kind of like, goodwill hunting type moments for me.
But I think that rolls into my next spontaneous question, right? Because both examples that you shared showcase a stretched mindset, right? Really a growth mindset where you are looking at things from a different perspective. Now, some career career people, career job seekers, they're stumbling there a little bit, once will definitely look at this aspect of work-life balance, right?
Yes.
I think it's sometimes misconstrued and misplaced, right, in looking at times within a job and in a role, and sometimes with employers as well, right? There will be some stretch times, and it's how you manage it and what is the goal that you have at the end, and that's where you chase for your dream careers, right? And perhaps you have one or two thoughts there for us.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I think over the years, I mean, from the time that I started really working in 1998 to
Mm.
where we are today, if you think about that term work-life balance, it didn't
Mm.
exist then, right? And totally it wasn't, and definitely in the kind of creative space, technology, and the kind of people work all kinds of hours, but
Mm.
I think the is how you define work-life balance.
Mm.
I think what's important to note is work-life balance doesn't mean a cut-off time.
Mm.
So, okay, let me just explain, right? So, for instance, let's say you work 9 to 6,
Mm.
and then I guess after that time to the following 9 o'clock is your time, right?
Mm.
So, I think the most basic understanding of the word work-life or the phrase work-life balance is that at 6 o'clock I stop work, and you cannot ask me about work. Actually, that's not true. The whole idea of work-life balance is that when you are enjoying life's moments, like you're enjoying time with your family or you're enjoying time with your friends, you're not thinking about work.
Mm.
So, which means that it doesn't matter if you get a hard stop at 6, but you're stressed about work or you're thinking about work or
Mm.
you're irritated about someone about work, and then you continue, that already means no work-life balance,
Yeah.
even though you're not working at that time because your brain is still thinking about work. So the
Yeah.
whole idea is to think of work-life balance as the ability to seamlessly go between thinking about work or thinking about life and enjoying life without merging those two in a very
Mm.
kind of mismatched way. So
Mm.
that for me, like what it means is, okay, so like right now we're working at home, right?
Mm.
And I have my kids, and there's sometimes distractions, things
Yeah.
like that. But the whole idea for me, work-life balance, is sometimes I have like 15 minutes between, say, my meetings, right? My
Mm.
meeting ended early. I would actually go and spend some time with my
Mm.
kid, right? Or
Mm.
or or speak to my partner or something like
Mm.
that. For me,
Yeah.
that is actually work-life balance because I
Yes.
am able to talk about what's going to be, what we're having for lunch, or talk about the show, or kind of, we watched something
Yeah.
last night in terms of a show and trying to break down a mystery or whatever it is. That is work-life balance, where I was able to take that time to kind of, and then I can go back and I can go back to work. So for me, I think it's that term you need to be very clear. So obviously within the job, you need to find, as I go back to it, find a job where there's purpose, a job that
Mm.
matters to you,
Mm.
and also be able to resolve any work related issues before you stop working at
Yeah.
the best you can, right?
Yeah.
And have that ability to just put it aside and then enjoy life, because you also don't want it the other way around, where you're working but then you're surfing about cars you want to buy, or you're surfing about holiday. That's also not work-life balance, right? Because you're taking life and you're putting it into the workspace. So I
Yeah.
think it's about being able to focus on the task at hand, and then just being present in that moment and being aware of what you're doing in that space. I think that's more work-life balance. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's my 2 cents. A bit like an old uncle nagging, I know, but that's kind of like what I have gathered across the years in terms
Yeah.
of what it needs to be for it to work.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct. And I do see, futuristic employers, that's
yeah,
how they play around, with the timings, right? So you have, time offs, you can go and take up a class during lunch,
yeah,
et
yeah,
cetera, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so,
totally.
so we've talked a lot about, like values, purpose, passion, etc. I want to come back to the job seeker's perspective.
Yeah.
What would be the top three skills that every job seeker must have in order to be hired?
Top three skills.
Mm.
So this is not values, right? So they
Yeah,
mean it has to be a skill, right?
skill. Okay,
Okay.
good.
So if you want to be instantly hired, okay.
Mm.
So from my opinion, and
Mm.
hiring thousands of people across my career, I would
Yes.
say that number one is
Mm.
definitely good communication skills.
Mm.
So what's interesting about this is something that can be learned, and it's something that can be practiced.
Yes.
So being able to communicate your ideas clearly or communicate your thoughts clearly is super important in an interview, because that's how you get the job, is through communication, right? So I would say this is the number one. The number two, I would say, is in terms of skill. This is harder to attain, but I would say that understanding technology, because right now we do live in a technology age, and being able to at least understand how the core technologies that support our life and our economy today works. So things like, don't just think like, oh, I don't know, my phone doesn't work because it's Wi-Fi, but actually it could be you haven't paid your bill or whatever, right? So I think you need to kind of really understand a bit of that technology piece, because every business today is in some way a technology business. So by not understanding technology or not wanting to understand technology is going to put you in the back foot when you go for an interview. Because if they say, hey, have you ever used this supply chain software? Do you know what it is? Then if you're like, no, I don't know. And then the next question they ask, oh, have you seen this online thing that's going on? Oh, sorry, I'm not. Then you already seem like you don't really understand technology. So I think
Yeah.
understanding technology, I know that's very broad, but it could just be reading a technology site every other day to
Yeah.
just see what's coming new, what's new, right?
Mm.
And then the third one I would say is, I think the skill that you mentioned earlier on, which is the continuous learning, I think
Mm.
it's very important. So
Mm.
by showing that you have over the last 3 years at least done three new things or two new things, I think puts definitely spins, I think it just makes your profile a lot more attractive. So for
Yeah.
instance, let's say you are someone who is, say you graduated in business, and you're looking for a job, let's say as a business analyst, and you're looking at helping companies with insight and reporting and things like that.
Mm.
And if the person says, hey, last year I actually took a course on data visualization on Coursera,
Mm.
or on whatever Udemy or whatever it
Mm.
could be that they have taken a course. And actually, I got a good grade, and it was actually a course that was done by Stanford.
Mm.
And then I also tried to learn a bit about Python programming, because I felt that if I got the data, I can do more manipulation through that. I
Mm.
mean, that person's going to get hired,
Yeah.
versus someone who says, oh yeah, I work for a bank. I kind of did the reporting through the tool that they gave me.
Mm.
And okay, so do you know this new tool? Oh no, but I can learn or whatever. But you see
Mm.
the contrast in the two candidates. So I would say the three
Yes.
things: communicate well, definitely learn about technology, especially in the space that you're working, and
Mm.
general technology that
Mm.
affects every one of us, and show that you are a continuous learner. I think that's something that's very, very crucial, especially if you want great jobs that you continue to get promoted. You would need to show these three things.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. That's so cool because now with the virtual career fair, uh, job seekers can actually talk to and get in touch
Yeah.
with potential employers and really showcase all their capabilities, their skills, and their talents in the various areas, right? So I think this is the unique point of having this mode of virtual career fair where you are involving the employers
Mm.
directly and job seekers have that direct connection. So then that goes, into this point for job seekers about is it who you know more important than what you know? So how
Oh,
can job seekers balance this a bit?
I think it's interesting. I think who of course, plays a part in terms of getting you introduced,
Mm,
but what is the one that's going to get you hired.
yeah.
Because if you build a network, and everyone should try to build their network as they build their careers, because
Mm,
collaboration is definitely a thing that everyone needs to do at some point, right? You need to,
mm,
let's say, connect with someone who has access to a media placement that you're trying to make, or you want to connect someone in the press because you have a great news story you want to get out, or whatever. You need a network.
yeah. Mm,
But those are just introductions, right? They can always say, I can always call someone and say, hey, can you introduce me to that person? But that doesn't mean I'm going to get that person's business,
mm, mm,
or I'm going to get that person's a job with that person.
yeah.
I mean, if they really like the introducer, the best I probably can get is a meeting.
Mm, yeah.
And from there on, it's up to me to do whatever it is. So the same thing
Yeah.
with the job, right? So I think, who is important to get you connected, but
Mm,
it won't get you hired.
mm. Yeah,
And if
that's
it
true.
gets you hired, it may not be for the job or the role that you want, I guess, to a certain extent as well, right? Yeah. So I
Mm.
would say that, yeah, it's a two-step
Yeah,
process. You still
it's a
need to,
two-step process.
yeah,
Yes. So it's very important to get connected as well, right? And if you are looking for jobs within that industry, it's also looking at various people from different job scopes to understand the
yep,
breadth and the depth of the industry as well.
yep, yep.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Okay, we're strolling down to our last few questions, and it's more about future for the job seekers, right? What do you think would be the future of job hunting looking like?
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, the future, you see, the thing is, you know what's interesting? I think to a large extent,
Mm,
it's going to be fairly similar, right?
mm,
Because there's going to always be someone who has a role,
mm,
and then there's a job seeker that wants to fill that role.
yep.
So I think that will not change. So the
Mm,
main construct of how people find other people and they decide to work together, that won't change.
yeah.
But I think what would change is the mediums and the channels that we use to basically connect those two
Okay.
things. So for
Mm,
example, like for JobStreet, we have a mobile app, right?
mm,
So we noticed that whoever has the mobile app responds to jobs quicker because they get alerts and they can connect and they can basically click apply.
yeah.
And essentially, so that means they get access to these jobs earlier than anyone else, right?
Mm,
Because they it gets pushed to them rather than they need to go and check something.
yeah.
And then they do more applications. So that means they look through and they're able to search and they find and then they apply more on the app. So I think how things would change in the future, it really depends on the channel and the medium, right? So eventually, once we have VR and AR and all of
Mm,
these newer techs, I think interviews would be conducted in person, virtually, things like that, right? Where
yes.
you're virtually in a space and things like so I would say that maybe the channels and the way that people connect would change, but I think the way that the construct of connecting people will stay the same.
Yeah, yeah, correct. And that's a hint for all our viewers out there, right? You have to prepare to be able to manage and understand these channels and mediums as well, right? So if an employer is texting you, right, you don't text in the same way as you would a friend, right?
Yeah, not
So
with
you got to
short
be
short
more
forms.
more professional, right?
Yeah.
And the usual greetings and all that needs to be there as well. So I think this is the part whereby sometimes people misunderstand and they just take it for
Mm.
granted as well.
Yeah, don't share
Um,
memes and gifs and things like that with the
yeah, yeah,
potential
yeah,
hirer.
correct. And like thumbs up, yay,
Yeah,
thank you for the job.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah,
after you've built that
yeah.
rapport and relationship. So that would
That's
be
true.
cool. Yeah. And that links to a question that I had in mind. What about rural and suburban folks, right? I know technology can reach to those areas, but I think in terms of awareness, education, and utilization of all these tools may not be as advanced as people in the city.
I don't know whether I would agree.
Mm,
I feel like with the exposure in terms of, so let's just
mm,
assume, in terms of Malaysia, the
yeah.
smartphone penetration, everyone has one, right?
Yes, correct.
And if you think about the access to channels like TikTok or Instagram or
Mm,
other social media, everyone has access to it.
mm,
So I would say that access and to these tools
it's
is
there.
not divided by this, right? But I
Mm.
think the types of jobs and
Ah,
what
okay.
sort, because again, you are also guided a lot by your environment and the people that you see around you
Mm,
and what those people do. So I
mm,
think that may guide some of the selection for roles, but it may
mm.
not actually inhibit someone from using the tools. So
Yeah,
I think it's more
okay.
on those kind of exposures. But then again, you someone who may be from a more rural setting ends up in university and being exposed to more things, and then of course those mindsets change, right? So I think
Yes.
it's more on, yeah, just in terms of in their world, what would be the job that they want is
Mm,
different, I guess, based on the worlds that you live in, right?
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, I wanted to break some boundaries there and, just challenge status quo in how people
No,
view,
no, yeah, no, I agree, I agree.
people's CV. Sometimes they look at CVs and they believe that
Oh
they
no,
have certain
yeah.
perceptions as well. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we hire people from all over Malaysia.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's no definitely there's no performance improvement if you're from a urban setting versus someone else, right? There's no
Mm,
such thing. I
mm,
think someone who is willing to dedicate themselves and learn and be great at what they do will
mm,
always rise up and be successful. I mean, I'm
mm.
from Kedah, so so I would be considered your rural country bumpkin. Okay, so so I guess that would be a good way to kind of look at that, right? So it's very different. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And my last question to close our conversation today is back to JobStreet, right? How would you see the evolution of JobStreet as it continues to strategize beyond the new norm today?
Okay, so as JobStreet, and let's look at the Malaysia context.
Mm,
So JobStreet, as you know, we've been around for 23 years. And this year we've taken it upon ourselves to play a bigger role in the community that we serve. So if you start to look at the things that JobStreet is doing, and that's why I pointed out with you said springboard at the beginning, right?
mm,
So we've launched a lot of campaigns to be a part of this reboot that's happening,
mm,
right? Because
okay.
I mean, we had to close the economy. Some people lost their jobs, companies had to close, or
Yeah.
companies had to shrink.
Mm,
But now that we're starting to open up and it's an endemic, and we kind of have to live with it with certain kind of rules and regulations and kind of
mm,
social spacing and distancing
mm,
and things like that, we want to help the country reboot. So JobStreet, for
mm,
instance, has started the JobStreet Business Springboard, which is really to work with SMEs trying to reboot.
mm,
So we give them access to our platform. We help them find jobs. We even give them access to the people within JobStreet and
mm,
Seek to help them in their companies. They may have a marketing problem that they want help, or they may have a technology
yeah.
question that they want IT's
Mm,
help. We are going to help them in such a deep manner, which is amazing because we've never ever done that. And usually corporates don't go so deep into
mm,
their I guess customers affairs, right? But this is the way
mm,
that we can help them reboot.
yeah.
And in terms of
Nice.
the hirers, we're speaking. I mean, sorry, in terms of the job seekers, we're speaking to job seekers of anyone who's looking for work. You
Mm,
could be looking for a data science job, or you could be looking for a teacher's job or healthcare, or anything. From riders to F&B to retail, we're
mm,
really looking at everyone who's looking for a job. We're going to find you a job. So essentially, really going out there and trying to source as many jobs and roles as we can to help everyone get a job. So I think that really deep connection to that community is something we want to build and sustain across the long term. So a lot of initiatives that you will see us as JobStreet,
mm,
we're going to evolve in a way that we're hopefully we are seen as someone who helps, whether it helps the companies grow,
mm,
or it helps the job seekers find their jobs. We
mm.
are going to be that person in the community essentially. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Love that, love that. Any last words, Vic, to all our
No, no,
viewers
thanks,
out
Shireen.
there?
I think no, it's great. Good luck, job seekers. There's a lot of amazing jobs out there, and for any level. So, I
Mm,
think the thing is, put yourself out there, put effort. Obviously, create a great profile, and put
mm,
yourself out there. Apply for it. Go for interviews. Give it your best. If
yes.
you put in the effort, then obviously results will follow. So I think, yeah, go ahead and best of luck to everyone.
Thank you, Vic. It has been an honor to hear your sharing and insights, and I hope all the viewers out there have truly taken away all the gems and golden nuggets from this session. We
I
were
hope they
just,
were. I hope they were
yes,
one or two at least. Thanks,
a
Shireen. I
lot, a
appreciate
lot. There's a whole bucket full there.
it.
Thank you so much, Vic. We were just speaking to Vic Sithasanan. I encourage you to connect with him and also JobStreet, register on this virtual career fair. And if you have more questions, just shoot out and connect with your hirers. So check out the JobStreet Virtual Career Fair, your springboard to a brighter future, for more information from the 14th to the 16th of October 2021. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe and good luck.